Well, I am really thrilled to have Tami Heim with us today. Tami is the CEO of Christian Leadership Alliance and uh, is one of my favorite conferences every year, both not just to be able to go and participate as a presenter, workshop presenter, speaker, but really actually to attend and just like we're doing with the digital ministry conference, be able to attend and just bring back really rich nuggets that you can apply to your organization. So Tami, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so excited about all your plans for the Digital Ministry Conference. I mean, as I'm seeing all of this unfold, my heart is just exploding with the things that God's making possible right now, and I'm so glad that you are totally on board and bringing this conference to life. Thank you.
Well, it's our pleasure. We just are asking, how can we give back to the community? And you are going to be sharing in our devotional on the second day, so really kicking off the second day. And our theme is many parts, one body. And your organization, the Alliance, works with so many different Christian organizations. In a lot of ways, you experience that every day in your work. So just tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be involved with the Christian Leadership Alliance.
Well, God got a hold of my life the day after I graduated from college. And in that moment, he rewrote the text of my life, and all the plans that I had, because I was very determined, were surrendered. And he created a new path, but it wasn't one that took me out of being in marketplace ministry. So I thought, okay, I'm ready to go to Africa, but that really wasn't God's plan. And so he put to work everything that he invested in me so that I could really serve as a Christian in the marketplace. And so I did that for many, many years. Really had a long experience, 16 years in fashion retail. And then I went into big box retail with Borders. And then from Borders, I went into Christian publishing. So you can kind of see there's this sequence in God's thinking. And then, the digital stuff started hitting. And so everything was changing. I mean, when I was at Borders, it was Amazon. When I got to Thomas Nelson Christian Publishing, it was all about readers and now digital content. And is it going to be books or is it going to be, electronic formats? So I felt like I was always in this place where the world was changing. And after being at Thomas Nelson, which brought our family to Nashville, Tennessee, which we always say that was just the beginning because we've been here 15 years now. I felt God was doing something very different. And so I jumped and I left Thomas Nelson, and then God started to stir in my heart more about this digital world that we're in. And so I became a partner in a web tech firm, had amazing growth. And I always say that's where God refined my digital groove. And after that, doing that for a couple of years, I knew that I wasn't wired necessarily to be a consultant and that there was something else God was leading me to. And so 3 doors open, and this time it was all nonprofit. And I had never encountered 3 opportunities with nonprofits. And 2 of them, I obviously could have loved their mission. I mean, I'm sure I know I could have connected and embraced them. But when I went to CLA, and I realized it was about the business of ministry and helping ministry steward the resources and just the foundation for their ministry. And if they did that well, that would enable them to be in a position so when God said go, they could go and they could do more. And I was completely captivated. And when I look back, Chad, I said, all my life, God had been preparing me for this opportunity to serve. And so I've been with Christian Leadership Alliance now since 2012. I can't believe it. It's gone so fast.
8 years. So just tell us a little bit, what is it like serving and really coming alongside and so many good quality and diverse organizations?
Well, that's probably where I have the greatest joy, because coming to Christian Leadership Alliance, instead of being so involved in just one, God said, I'm giving you permission to love all of them. And it was in October of 2016, and I was doing chronological Bible study, and I stumbled into 1 Corinthians 12:4-7. And that's the chapter kind of between God's order and right before we get to the love chapter. Okay. And in it, Paul's talking along the theme of your conference. You know, he's talking about the body of Christ and that we're one and Christ is the head. But in those particular verses, it talked about the fact that there's lots of different ministries. There's lots of different gifting and there's lots of different activity, but the manifestation of the Spirit is given to each one for the profit of all. And it was like I got this fresh revelation of Christian Leadership Alliance, and our niche is to bring together all different, it's in the diversity, you know, which is a pretty important topic right now, but it's in that diversity that we create this ecosystem of exchange and collaboration that you couldn't get if you were just a specific kind of alliance that just focused on a ministry. And those are great because they're equipping them in those specific types of activities. But here, this is where the whole community comes together. And I often feel like from the large to small, everybody has a place and they have something to give and they have something to receive. That when you come to CLA, when I look at that, the audience or the conference, like you mentioned, I feel like I'm looking at the warp and the weave of a redemption plan. That God is, you know, that it's right there. And I see all these ministries and how they meet needs everywhere. And they satisfy. They're just like Jesus. They take care of the need, and then they give people the opportunity to have hope in life. And so it's miraculous to see all the different assignments God gives us for his purpose. And we see that all the time through the ministries within Christian leadership. And even the service providers, Chad. I mean, I don't think one is better than the other, or, well, they're on the front line doing nonprofit ministry and they have for-profit. You know, I think of 5Q and your team. I mean, you've dedicated, I'm sure you could take the knowledge that you and your team have acquired over the years, and you could probably go into a marketplace and it would be profitable by the world's standards. But your ministry is to invest back into these ministries because you understand 1 billion lives impacted and what your assignment is in that purpose. And so as Christian leaders and as Christians at large, we have to embrace the assignment that we have because it all matters to the plan.
Man, that's so good. The warp and the weave of redemption of the redemption plan. I just love that. You also said that your time at the 8 group was where you refined your digital groove.
Yes.
And that really was on display here recently because you pulled off the Outcomes Conference, which is usually a large in-person event down in Dallas for the last few years. And you pivoted in a few short weeks and made it entirely digital experience. So that in and of itself is really amazing. So could you just talk with us just about the challenges and the joys that you saw from that whole process?
Well, the first thing that I have to say is God pivoted and we followed. I would never want to take credit for what happened in that moment of time because God answered a prayer we didn't even know how to pray and created this extraordinary opportunity to do it. And sometimes I think God's, you know, it's kind of like when Jesus came and there was the tomb and there was Lazarus. Jesus could have raised his hands and said, Lazarus, come forth. And the stone could have gone rolling over. And I mean, you know, that would have been a pretty epic event, right? But instead he said, go roll the stone. And so I believe in this God pivot. He pivoted and then he said to us, roll away the stone. And that was to put our hands and feet and mind and heart to the conversion. So God made that possible. So there's always a great joy when you see God do something that you never expected him to do, and then you get to be part of it. The work was hard and the time frame was punishing, but we caught a vision of what was possible and knew that this may be a moment in the 44 years of Christian Leadership Alliance where we would equip and train more leaders than we ever had if we'd had an individual conference. And even in the first 15 days, the content had been downloaded over 20,000 times.
Wow.
So,
and that you said that content is still living on and still
yes,
being, it's still impacting hearts and lives.
Well, we did the real conference May 4th through the 10th. and we had programming every day, and we tried to assemble an order to help people through that. And then after that, it became completely on demand. So it's on demand until July 25th, and people are still going in. And if anything, I think in this time where it's just really challenging and people are working from home and all the things that come with that, it's been a real blessing for people to just go see it when they are. But we had to think differently, Chad. You can't completely convert everything. And goodness knows, as Christians, we love our handshakes and our hugs and our happy huddles in person. So it's difficult to replicate that. But we really feel like at this time, with very much what you're doing, is people just need to be equipped. We need to know wisdom for, finding this new normal and what God has next, and really to be present to what is he teaching us right now that really is so relevant for what we're going to need to know in the days ahead.
I love what you said, that you had to learn to think differently. And because every medium is a different way to be able to communicate well. The medium is the message in a lot of different ways. And that really ties into one of the sessions we will be doing, which is the 5 marks of a healthy digital mindset. And just one of the really exciting sessions we're looking forward to next week.
And the fun thing I want to say, Chad, is that we learned a lot through our experience, and there's things that we would go back and change, and you'll do that too. But it's just awesome to really seriously to be on this epic adventure of learning and growing and embracing what God's making possible, because we're just going to get better and stronger because of it. So we do need to have that mindset.
Yeah, we have an opportunity to either lean into a growth mindset or lean into a panic mindset anytime we face a crisis like this. And,
exactly.
Yeah. So the devotional that you're going to be talking about really is on the theme of many parts, one body.
Yes.
Just talk to us about who is this devotional and not miss, that they just can't miss this.
Well, here's what I would say. And it reminds me of my publishing days when people would come in and we'd ask that question and they go, well, everybody needs my book. So I want to be careful here, but I really do feel that whether you're a top leader, or even if you're a Christian that's just curious about what this is all about and maybe not professionally, I really think that there's something relevant for all of us, because at the core of us, we are Christ followers. And he has entrusted this time to us to steward. And my heart is, I don't want us to fall so in love with the technology and what he's made possible that we lose our sense of personal ministry and who we are in Christ, and how we as his followers and his image bearers express ourselves in those spaces. And I know that you're going to have a few sessions that are going to talk about some of the issues and how we're talking with one another. And it's so vital. I mean, my prayer is that as Christians, we would seize this new mission field of technology in such a way that we would become this aroma of Christ in everything that we choose to say and do and express in a digital world, because nothing gets deleted. Everything's always there. It lives on forever. So we can have the mark of Christ impress and stick with people forever.
That's so good. Technology at the end of the day is just a tool. It is a tool, and it's the crafter of that tool is the one who determines whether that tool is used for good or for ill or for evil. And what an amazing opportunity for us to live in the age that we do. And we're just scratching the surface really this next week on the different areas that we could be talking about of how to do ministry in the digital space. And you've already got me pumped up. I can't wait to be able to hear your devotional. And it's going to be really good. So one final question for you. What leadership resource are you currently most excited about?
Well, I mean, obviously we just did the digital conference. And so I'm excited about how that informs the future. And now that we've learned things, how do we steward what we learned? And then also, how does that digital begin to intersect as we're planning our conference in 2021? We'll be in Jacksonville, Florida. And we think that it's not, here's one and here's the other. But we think there's going to be this intersection with technology and the conference in a way that we've never seen before. And in fact, even in planning the agenda, we created these huge blocks of spaces that normally we would, pre-assign. And we said, we're just blocking that. And as we go on this journey, we're going to let God write those parts more perfectly for us. So I'm excited to see how that's going to unfold and how the two come together. I don't think they have to be one or the other. I think there's something about all of it coming together in 2021.
And so if, like what you said, all those sessions are currently available on demand. Is it the outcomesconference.com, or remind us of what the web address is if somebody wants to go and look up those sessions right now?
Well, if they go to the Outcomes Conference website, we have 2021 featured, but right under it says, are you looking for the digital experience? You can click on that and you can go in there if you're not already registered. If you're registered, you already have the links and you're in there and you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, it's fun. And then you know how it is, Chad. It's fun when you're on the back end and you can see what people are doing and just how they're engaging. And, we could get lost in some of the data that we have on that. But I think that's important for us to know, not that we're looking at individuals, but what are those trends and those patterns and what's most meaningful, because you know that better. I mean, if we aren't serving the needs of those we're called to serve, then, we're missing out. So we're learning a lot.
And that's one of the great things about when you make it available in digital, because you can have those crumb trails, those breadcrumb trails where you can see. And so that allows you to, you guys do a great job of having a good survey after every session when you're in person. And this is like a survey on steroids, because you can actually see how much time do they actually spend in that session. And one of the benefits, and that goes into your creation for what are the right sessions for next year.
Exactly. And it's interesting because my staff, we have never been able to attend our conference.
Sure.
Because we're managing it. And now we're being fed and we're going through it. And, we're learning a lot about our faculty and, again, what people are voting, because people vote with their views, right? And the time that they spend on things. So we're learning the things that are relevant. In fact, I went through and I pulled like the most viewed in each one of the tracks. And it was almost like there was this fascinating theme and trend in all of that. The other thing about digital is if, in a conference environment, you may have 50 people in a session max, because there's so many choices. And we have content in there that those sessions, that those presenters and faculty invested their time in. I mean, they've been seen over 500 times.
That's great. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, what a blessing both ways when someone prepares a message to know that it's reaching so many more.
That's so good. Tami, thanks so much for your time today. We are really, really looking forward to what you're going to have to share with us next Thursday morning. So again, if you're watching this and you haven't signed up yet for the Digital Ministry Conference, it's next June 17 and 18, Wednesday and Thursday for 4 hours each day. Really encourage you to sign up. Bring your teammates, bring your friends. We're going to be announcing a contest here later today, where some good prizes for the most folks that bring the most teams that bring the most people and attend. So, and I'll just give a kind of a peek into it. One of them, Tami, I don't know if you've seen the Owl, which is it's a camera it's a 360 camera for conference rooms. Really, really incredible device. We use it here. We took it to church the other day for our elder meetings so we could get everybody seeing there. So that will actually be one of the prizes for the organization that brings the most folks and attends the most time. So we're going to have a lot of fun as well as a lot of learning. So Tami, thanks again so much for joining us, and we look forward to next week.
I can't wait either. I'm getting my learning hat on. It's going to be awesome, Chad. Thank you for making it happen.